Alright guys, so we're going to work on a conversion today for Battletech. Now, one of my favorite artists for Battletech is Anthony Scroggins. I think he's done a lot for the Battletech universe, and without him doing new art and new 3D sculpts, or at least he and his team for sure, I'm not so sure that the Battletech IP would be doing as well as it is right now. So I give him a lot of credit, and I praise a lot of what he's doing, and I really like it. So I've been following him on DeviantArt for quite some time. Shimmering Sword over on DeviantArt if you're over there. And one of the prints I've got from him is actually two of them are Wolf's Dragoons, and one of them is the one that's got a Savage Wolf on it and a Vulture, or Mad Dog. Actually, it's not a Mad Dog, it's a Vulture Mark IV. So I'll go ahead and put that up on the screen, show that to you guys. Some of my favorite artwork. The other one I've got is the red and black Wolf's Dragoons on the moon. That one is neither here nor there. It's probably my favorite because it's my boys, the Wolf's Dragoons, but the one with the Savage Wolf and the Vulture Mark IV, it's one of my favorites as well, and I really like that Vulture. I'm a big fan of the Savage Wolf as well. But if you guys are taking a look at the Vulture and the Savage Wolf, you may realize that those are newer looking designs, and the Savage Wolf has a new model, which we've got here, boom, and the Vulture does not. Boom, old one. So in today's video, I'm going to be taking parts from the Savage Wolf to update the Vulture to better match this artwork. So for that, we'll be using both of these particular minis and a couple of tools, so this shouldn't be too terrible. So we've got our X-Acto blade, should we need to shave anything. We've got a set of Army Painter's drill bits, which we will need. And then we have got, so let me just prop that, thank you, because the light was on them. We have got a hand drill or pin vise, also from Army Painter. We've got a base, so that we can mount our little bro. We've got a paper clip, which I'll be using for the pinning. A pair of snips that is good for snipping into metal. This is not one of the ones I use for snipping plastic because it's all beat up, so I use the right tool for the job. And then, of course, we'll be using a little bit of some super glue as needed. Finally, one last thing that I'll sometimes use is liquid green stuff, assuming this bottle is not absolutely trashed. I find it really useful for assembling metal models, just to fill in the joints a little bit with something for the glue to have extra adhesion to. I'm going to start off by pulling these parts out to see just what we've got. There's our Savage Wolf parts. We've got the torso, the feet, the missile pods here and here, and the arm joints and leg joints as well. And there is our Vulture Mark IV. So now we need to determine which parts we want to be salvaging from the Mad Cat. So we're not going to be using the Mad Cat's torso, that's for sure. We are definitely going to be using the hip assembly, so we'll need that right here. We'll come in, grab our little snips. So, pilfered parts over here. Spare parts for the Mad Cat back over here. So we're definitely going to need some of the feet. Looking at the artwork, we're probably going to want the one with the toes down a little bit. Pilfered. For this one over here, we're going to need one more of the other feet, which these look identical. I think these are the same sprue. They are. They say X2. So we're going to need one of those feet. So we've got 2 feet. We're definitely going to need whatever this joint is here. I think this is one of the arms. Rock that back and forth. And then we're not going to need the legs from this particular model, because we're going to be replacing them. Over here they go. We're not going to need the hip assembly from this model. Over there it goes. So we're saving all these because we can make a Savage Wolf out of this. It'll just have different legs. Now, looking at the artwork here, it looks like it's using the autocannon variant for the left arm. So we're going to save this one. Actually, we're going to sit down here for comparison first. We're definitely going to need a right arm. This one has a left and a right. So let's go ahead and grab the left one here so that we have matching. And then come over here and compare. So these look like they are visually much larger than what the Mad Dog, or what this one is right here. So I'm not sure if they're going to look as nice on the Mini if we're using the big ones, or the big one for the right arm. So I think we're going to actually stick with left and right on this so that the size of these weapons kind of relative to each other looks more exact. Especially because the arm there, arm portion is using something different. So I really do want to use that, but even looking down like at the top, look how visually bigger that cannon or that PPC gun is. So we're not going to do that. We will take these bits here. We'll save the guns here for the Mad Cat. Ooh, that one's on there pretty well, so that one's probably going to need the snips. Get that off. And this here. Now, let's check out what remaining bits that we have. All right, so looking at the bits that we've got, this looks like it is going to be for the guns here. I assume that goes in here like that. And then I assume this top portion is going to go into the Mad Cat's arm like so. I assume that is what that is going to do to create the arms there. Now I think that means that these are going to be for the hips here. Let's see. Yep, so that has like a little registration point, a nub in there, so that when we go to put this on, we should be able to lock that in place. Cool. All right. So we've got that right there. That is one of the legs. So we know that these parts are going to be the legs. These are the upper arms, which we do not need because we're not using these particular ones for this guy. And these are going to socket up here on that, like so, which is going to be old style arms, which I'm not as big of a fan of, but there's no real way, there's no real way to use that cannon over here. Looking at the bits here, I really do like the idea of having the larger PPC weapon from the new Savage Wolf with this arm, which would not be too hard to do. We would shave that off, drop a pin here and here, and socket that in. But the only way to actually get that to work with this part here is just going to be an absolute nightmare because the way this is with one single part. If these were in two parts, it'd be pretty easy to drop that in. But in order to make this work with those arms, we would have to cut this here and then cut that along that line and get it flush. And I just, those tools and stuff are possible, but with what I have on hand, not going to be practical. So unfortunately, we are going to be rocking the old ones. The other option I had as an idea was to try and cut the front half of that off and then have this with its canister and put that on. I think that's going to be a lot of effort too. This would be a lot easier with like a 3D print or something, but with what we have on hand, I think we're going to rock the old guns and arms, which is not ideal. This is what we're going to do. And then we are going to use the new legs with the hips. One other option we could have had, but I did not want to do this because I think it would have made it to where I could not have completed the Savage Wolf with the parts I have here, is we could have cut off right here and then mounted right there. This would have given us a larger surface, or the bulkier surface area to go up here for the arm housing or the upper arm, but it would have denied me having the bits to complete the Savage Wolf, which would have made the majority of those parts useless, and I did not want to do that to myself. Before we get too far into this, the next step we're going to be doing is going to be shaving off some of the flash and mold lines to make these look nice. To assist us with this, we'll be using some foam sanding sticks from Green Stuff World. We've got 800 grit here. I believe this one is a 180, and I believe this one's a 280, something like that. So these will help us sand off a little bit, especially on some of the side areas on this. So to get started, we're going to come in here and just kind of come in and start shaving off some of the mold lines here we've got. For the tops of some of these weapons, these are pretty nice to flat areas that are really easy to get at and kind of clear off some of those mold lines as well. All right, with our handy dandy sanding sticks here, we're going to try and come in and kind of buff up, scuff up, polish some of the sides of this guy. Not only is this going to clean this up, should give our paint something to also kind of adhere to, because we have these like light kind of polished scratches here for the paint to adhere to. Now, I'm personally not worried about every little surface, just doing the best I can, because there's a lot of complex areas to get into. If you were worried about that, you can come in here with your sanding sticks and cut them down to size to whatever fits best for you. And we'll try and do something similar on all these and use the sanding sticks to go up in our grit level as well. And as we go up, with the finer grit, we should get more of a polish and less of a scratched look. Once there's paint on it, that should all go away as well, but this will help clean up some of the areas and polish this for paint. Alright, so we have polished up and sanded down a lot of the areas here, make them look a little bit shinier and clean, get some of the mold lines off as best we can. So now it's time for us to start figuring out how we want to pose this guy. Now, in the picture, it looks like his left foot is forward, and it's got this one with the little feet coming down. So we're going to have that as his left foot. This is going to be his right foot, which is kind of looks like it's planted flat, and he's kind of stepping forward in that arch. So right foot, left foot. He's got this on his left arm, right arm. And then we've got his, I believe this is going to be his right hip assembly or thigh. This is going to be the left. And then that is going to make this one the left leg, I believe. Left lower leg and right lower leg. And then the hips, which I believe are going to have this part facing forward. Now, it doesn't look like there's any nubbins on the actual hip assembly here, so we're going to be at the mercy of the assembly that we do here for posing. So let's see how this is going to look first when we get in here. So that mounts kind of like that, and we can probably get some nice work out of where that nubbin already has us lined up to make that work out pretty well, I think. So first and foremost, I think we're going to go ahead and score the bottom of this one. So one of the things that I will do when I'm assembling metal is score the areas that stuff is going to go, because it's going to help with adhesion. Now you have metal on metal contact, we're using super glue, so it's not the best bond. And one of the things you could do is pin, but for feet and stuff like this, these ball sockets, I don't like to pin quite as much. So what I'll normally do is grab a teeny little bit of liquid green stuff, assuming we've got some that's still functional in our container here. I'll roll up a little bit of that, put some down in there. Don't need a huge amount, so I'm going to kind of cut some of that. And what I normally like to do is kind of mash that down in there, so we've got a little bit of almost a paste of sorts of like grit or material that our other part can stick to. So let's go ahead and mash this down in there. Okay. And the green stuff's kind of holding for now. Let's just trim up the sides there. Okay, so you see it's kind of mashed it down in there pretty well. So let's go ahead and just light score marks on that. Alright, so now I'm going to put a little bit of super glue. And I know how I want this one to go already, so I'm not as worried about the assembly on this one. So this is the leg. We're going to go ahead and glue this in, press down, and we're going to push as far back as possible with that toe, because we want him to be able to like sit up and kind of look like he's walking. So it's a pretty good guideline there. And that green stuff really helps make that super glue kind of have something to attach to and hold faster, because otherwise sometimes the metal and metal contact doesn't like it as well. Okay, so it looks like we've got our nubbin here, and I think that might kind of get us where we want to be, because this hip here is going to let us have some articulation, so we can move up and down a little bit. And I don't know if we need this one to go up quite as far as we might think we want. So the next step, while that one is drying, this one we're going to wait on for a moment, but the next step is going to be for pinning. So let me go ahead and get this scored. We'll get the pinning started, and I'll explain that to you. So for pinning, we're going to use our handy dandy paper clip here. This is what I use to pin. You can use, I think there's like brass rod or something like that you can use, but I like using this because it's cheap and it is reasonably effective. So we're going to grab our army painter drill bits here, and we're going to find the one that looks to be the approximate size. And I think the third one in line is going to be the ticket. So let's go ahead and pull that one out. Get our hand drill here. Load this bad boy up. Compare. That looks very, very close. So we're definitely going to need a pin on this side of the hip. So let's grab our sanding stick here real quick. And while the other areas we were sanding, we were just kind of going for surface area and trying to scuff up the tops and clear some mold lines. This one, we're just trying to flatten that out. And because it protrudes so far, we can flatten that pretty easily. There we go. So reasonably flat. Let's go ahead and do it on this side too. All right, so we got a reasonably flat surface. Let's go ahead and come in here, and we're going to drill a hole. Now, you could have done this on the top of that kind of ball that was out there, but it's a pain in the butt. So you've got a flat surface. The drill bit's got a little bit of an easier time biting, and it's not going to slip so easily on you. You could do this with a drill, an actual drill, or a Dremel, but if you do, just be careful because they tend to go a lot faster, and they heats up the metal, so you could burn yourself or slip and kind of hurt yourself a lot more easily than you can by doing it by hand. So be aware of the dangers when you are doing some hobbying. So now I've got a hole. Let's go ahead and see how deep that is. That actually seems pretty reasonable. Let's go ahead and drill one on this side as well. Check our depth. Can go a little bit deeper. Alright, I'm liking where that's at. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to take a little bit of this green stuff. I've got a little bit here on our a very messy cutting mat here. We're going to get a little bit of this. Won't take too much. And we're going to kind of press down into that hole with that. Okay, same thing on this side. Give us a little smidge more. And my liquid green stuff is kind of dried up a bit. It's almost like a little bit of a putty. So yours may be a little bit easier, my goodness, easier to deal with than mine, because mine was a little bit old. Okay, so you can see we've got green stuff down the hole. So now I'm going to start off by cutting some of this. So first thing I want to recommend is you get a paper towel. When you go to cut this, fold this over, snip. If you don't, the tension that is applied here, when you snip, these can fly across the room. Caveat as well, when you snip anything metal like this, you generally end up with kind of a sharp pointy edge. So be careful as to not hurt yourself. We're trying to hobby, not to go to the ER. So we're going to go ahead and cut ourselves another piece of this. There we go. Now, trust me, from my hobby experience, doing that is a must so that you don't lose parts or have things fly across the room. So now we're going to put a little dab of super glue right here. We'll take one of our pins and we'll mash that down in there. Now I'm going to use these to press because I don't want to press on the top of that, because the top of that is very pointy and I don't want to stab myself. While this is still wet, I can come in and shave off any excess green stuff that comes out of that hole. There we go. We've got our first makeshift pin in. We'll go ahead and do the other one as well. All right, so we've got our first two pins in here. Clearly we're going to trim those down, but that means we're going to have to pin the opposite sides as well. And those are going to be our hip assemblies here. So as best we can, we're going to try and get the pin holes lined up kind of in the middle. And you need to make sure you pay attention to the depth you have here to work with, because you don't want to drill a hole through the other side. And if you do drill a hole through the other side, it's going to hit your fingers, so be very careful while doing this. And I'll kind of go and I'll assess and I'll look, see how deep the hole is getting for me. And I think that might be the ticket. That might be. Yeah, oh yeah, that's plenty deep. Might have almost even came through that side. So we're going to do that on the other side as well. We've got the thighs here ready, the hips pinned. That means we are now going to need to come over here and pin these. Now these are a right pain in the butt given where they are, because these are the old arm sockets for the Mad Dog here, or the Vulture. The Savage Wolf has something similar going on, which is quite a pain in the butt. To get things started, we're going to need to shave the nub in here. Now, if you don't pin this, it's also a pain in the butt because it's such a small surface area to glue. These will just fall right off. So pinning on the old style is a must. So we'll come in and we'll just shave that off. I'm actually going to try and get that flush. Okay, and we'll do the same thing on this side as well. Okay, let's grab our standing stick. We're grabbing the higher or the lower grit one, so it's going to be a bit more abrasive. You're just trying to flatten that out a little bit. Same thing on this side. Okay, we've got a little bit of flashing right here, so let's go ahead and clean that up. Unlikely to be too visible, but might as well clean it over here. All right, so when you pin these, same thing. You're just going to be, when you're drilling your holes, just be very careful. You have a much smaller area to be working with, so be very careful. And for these, sometimes I kind of come in at a little bit of an angle. Give yourselves a few cranks, and then start leveling it out. Check depth. I think we've got a decent depth on that one. We'll come over here and replicate on the other side as well. With the arms now done, we need to come into the actual socket points on the torso. And this will be a little bit easier because there's already a dimple, so we're just going to line that up and start drilling in. This one we don't have to worry quite as much about depth because we have a lot to work with because the torso is so big. We're not going to actually drill through. With this, just be careful. Try and keep your actual drill bit and hand drill here flush or level, because if you don't, it's possible to snap this off inside the arm, and we don't want that. This metal, while soft, is not quite as soft as plastic, so it's not going to have as much give, and your bits can kind of get stuck in there and start flexing, and we don't want to break them. Next up, let's go ahead and get our parts kind of organized here, and let's just reset our area real fast so it looks good for filming. And that's a little bit better. Still got a little collection of our green stuff particles right here, and then our bits over here. So let's go ahead and start by cramming some of this green stuff into the arm socket there. Okay. And we'll come do the same on this one too. Okay. So now let's come over here as we did before, get our paper clip and snap some off here. I think that's probably a pretty good length there. And we'll go ahead and snap one more because we've got another arm to do as well. We're going to put a little bit of super glue ready. Grab one of our paper clips and proceed to push that in there. Okay. Trim up a little bit of that excess green stuff and glue there. Come over here and do the same. All right, while our arms are drying here, it's time to determine how we want the hip assembly to go. Now, we don't have a ball socket here. We were going to try and use an acrylic ball. The ball's not going to work out so well because it's too big. You don't have a small one. So we're going to actually be pinning this and putting it flush. So we're looking to have him looking off kind of to his left. So we're going to go ahead and drop a pin here and put a hole here so we can start working on the pose. I think that's pretty good. All right, so let's go ahead and snip some of our paper clip. We're going to grab a long section here in the middle that's straight. Now, okay, take a little bit of that green stuff, a little bit more actually. And this one's not going to matter as much because this will not be visible, so we're going to put a nice little dollop in there. Push through that green stuff and find that hole. All right, so we've got it. All right, drop a little bit of glue down in there. Okay, so we've got our pin in. I'm going to press that green stuff down around it. Okay, I'm going to grab this one, and we're going to see about how far that goes and kind of determine about how much we're going to need to cut off there, which looks like a pretty big chunk. So let's hold this and be careful. Okay, so we got our little snippet off. And let's see how we did. So we've got that quite well. So the next thing we're going to do is see if we can't get this lined up with that hole. Okay. There we go. All right, so we're looking to get our posing kind of where we want. It looks like it's off to the left approximately that far relative to the photo. Maybe more like that. Okay. So kind of got an idea where I want it. I'm gonna go ahead and drop some glue here. Got plenty of that green stuff there built up, so that's gonna help kind of grab the glue and give us something to grip to. You can get a firm push in, like so. You can hold. So while that's drying, we can check our arm depth. Looks like we're gonna need to trim off a nice chunk of that too. So let's go ahead and trim these down and see where we're sitting. All right, so we have done the trim on the arms. We'll check our fitment, and looks like our pins sit nice down in there. Pretty good, and pretty good. Now we're gonna need to trim these so that we can get the hips on here, which we did those. And looks like we're gonna need a nice long trim for those. So let's go ahead and get that done too. We've got that trimmed up, and these socket in pretty well. So the next thing we're gonna have to do is work on the actual posing for the legs here and kind of determine where we want these to be. So it looks like that one is kind of about like that. And I think this is the one we're gonna end up having to trim the nubbin, I think, to get this to line up properly. Because that one, it's kind of, I don't think that's gonna give us the pose we want with that front foot being up, because that's gonna be like that. And actually, you know, it actually might. That actually might work out. All right, so I think we're gonna have to take a shot in the dark here and just work on this. And if we need to make an adjustment, it will be here. But I think we're gonna need that back foot to come back, and we'll have it sitting kind of on the base here as best we can, and the front foot kind of coming forward. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop some glue in this and pray for the best. Looking at our current posing, I think we might actually get away without having to readjust this too much. And because it's already got the little nubbin here and here, we're gonna bypass pinning. If you wanted to adjust the pose more, you would shave that off, put a pin here, and put a hole here. And honestly, since there's already a hole here, you could probably work off the one they've got you and just put the pin where that nubbin is. That said, I think we're in a good spot. Whoa, wrong glue. All right, with glue on our fingers and the correct glue in our hands, now we're gonna glue this part on. This was the wrong glue, and this is thin CA, and it's super runny like water. And once it hits, it pretty much instant cures to your fingers. So be aware when you're using it what you're in for, because it's gonna suck. To get our posing the way we want, we're gonna have to determine where we want to put the anchor foot here. And what I like to do is look at where the torso is looking, because I like that to be my point of reference for shooting. So the hips are pointing one way, the torso is pointing the other. So I'll generally take my base, I'll line the model up above it, and then kind of use that as a reference for where I want this guy to go. So it looks like his torso to be kind of centered. It's going to be facing this way, and then his foot's going to be kind of over here. Now we're trying to determine where we want that to be to keep him kind of centered on the base, and I think that means the foot's going to be somewhere right about in here. Now we've got these lipped bases, so oftentimes I'll end up with part of the foot slightly off and then some basing underneath, so that's something that happens too. So to get the pose we want, we're gonna end up mounting this foot kind of on the corner there with a little bit of lip. So we're gonna put a little green stuff under that, and then we're gonna drill a hole through as well. We want a hole to go through the foot and into this ankle as well. We need some support to hold him to the base, because this foot is going to be up in the air and there's no real way to have it anchored down to the base. So we don't want him to fall forward and break off easily, so we're going to pin that as well. And fortunately, drilling through the bottom of the foot is pretty easy because it's so thin right there, so that probably took 2 or 3 spins. So now we need to come in and determine kind of where we want it to be on this, which was roughly flush. So I've gone ahead and put a hole in the foot here and pinned some of the paper clip in there. We've got it bent a little bit so that our foot here can come up and line up with the curvature of that right there, and should be reasonably level with the body. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and prop that there. I'm going to put a little bit of green stuff down here as something to mash that foot down onto. And getting these things lined up can be a bit of a pain in the butt, so patience is definitely going to be your friend. Fresh green stuff here. Mash a little bit of that down into the foot. And we're essentially going to be gluing kind of 3 things here, so let's go ahead and get our pin through the foot here. Mash that up there. And we'll go ahead and find our hole here and mash that down. And then it's going to be a matter of us holding and super gluing as best we can the 3 parts, which is a lot. So let's see if I could do that without absolutely gluing this guy to my hands. Alright, so that was a little bit more tedious than I would have liked for it to have been, but we've got that all the way through. We've got some glue and green stuff packed under the foot, and now once that's on here, we're going to want to bend this over the side here. So we're going to try and be very careful as to not mess up our mini there. I'm just going to gently press this down. Going to hold this with our finger, be careful, snip. And he's currently standing one-legged, which is good. This looks like it might be protruding just a smidge, so I'm going to try and push that down, and we'll put a little glue over it as well. With our other foot drying, this bent in place and some glue there, we can begin working on getting this posed up. So we'll set that down. We've got our little nubbin here all ready for this one, so whoop, wrong glue again. That one will glue your fingers together. Let's grab this glue. And we'll go ahead and get this leg mounted together. Again, if you remove that nubbin, you could pin this yourself, but that helps out tremendously. While that's going, we'll grab a little bit of that green stuff, cram that down in there. Grab our X-Acto blade, just mash some of that down in that hole. Pull some out. Don't need a lot, just want a nice coating down in that bottom. Okay, now we're going to put a little bit of that in here. And we'll come over here, mount this to our hip, and find the hole that it needs to line up. Got it. And then we'll go about trying to position this in such a way that it looks like what we want from the box art. And the art from Scroggins, way too far up, looks a little goofy. Down towards the ground looks very, very close to what he had. And I'm actually going to have it come down a little bit less because I could get that toe to touch, and we could put a little bit of glue there to tack it down, which will help prevent that leg from breaking off at some point, even with the pins. So let's hold that for a moment and let that dry. All right, so we've got our leg dry. I've went ahead and tacked a little bit of super glue there. Next up, it's time for us to do the final touches here, which is to mount the arms. Now, I've already crammed a little bit of green stuff in here, so we'll put a little bit of glue on. Grab our arm, line it up there, and we'll hold that in place roughly level where we think that gun would be aiming. Okay, and it looks like this is in line with that, so I'm happy with that one. Let's come over to this side and do the same thing. And with our guns mounted here, the feet tacked, we've got this guy complete. Now, it's not 100% like the box art because these arms aren't, or not box art, concept art from Scroggins, because these arms aren't exactly the same, and we've got the more appropriate upper arms here and the bits thing from the Mad Cat, Savage Wolf. But I did not want to absolutely destroy all of these bits and make him unusable. I wanted to actually be able to use that model as well. But we did the leg swap. These look a heck of a lot better than the standard old school legs that you got with this guy. And I've built quite a few of this particular model already, or this particular variant without those legs, so I think the legs are a nice swap. Now, if I was not trying to follow Scroggins' art, I may have actually went ahead and did the full arm swaps using these from the new Savage Wolf as well. Even though they're a little bit bulkier and not quite as long, I think they would have looked good, but I wanted to remain faithful to his art and have that autocannon here, and the Savage Wolf did not come with that, so this is what we've got. That said, folks, that is going to be the end of today's kind of modification tutorial. Hopefully you learned something. Grab some more fresh liquid green stuff if you want to replicate this, because that was a little bit of a pain in the butt. I was not able to grab that to rectify it in a short term because I didn't know it was kind of going bad. So that's something to look for if you want to do this. And also hopefully that helped you learn to do some pinning and do some custom posing. If you enjoyed this, hit that like, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And as always, keep painting your models, keep rolling your dice, and I will catch you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and being here with me today. I pour a lot of time and passion into every video, and I genuinely hope it adds something to your hobby experience. If you've enjoyed today's content and want to see more, consider supporting me over on Patreon. Every little bit of support helps fuel what I'm doing here, and it truly makes a difference. Whether it's a few dollars or simply sharing the channel with others, your support means the world to me and allows me to keep doing what I love and hopefully inspiring you along the way. A huge thank you as well to all my sponsors, Monument Hobbies, Fortress Miniatures and Games, Baron of Dice, and Deathra Designs as well. Their backing is vital to the channel, and if you're in the market for top quality paints, miniatures, dice, or terrain, please check out their links below. Not only will you be picking up some great products, but you'll also be supporting this growing community we share together. Thank you so much for watching, and for your time, and for being a part of this journey with me. As I sign off today, let's go ahead and highlight some awesome patrons who are helping fuel this journey we're on together and helping keep things going.